It's a test of your personality.
So they will ask you a question which is opinion-based question.
And you should be able to justify your stand also.
Do these board members have any personality attribute metrics?
Because then if you are caught, you will be in a very embarrassing position. And sometimes this nasty behavior is also deliberate.
We have with us today Mr. Shekhar Agarwal, retired IAS officer, who has kindly consented to come to Rao's IAS Study Circle and give us some suggestions, some advice about personality test. Shri Shekhar Agarwal ji had an illustrious career in civil services for 35 years, and after his retirement he was nominated as administrative member of Principal Bench of Central Administrative Tribunal in Delhi, where he served for 5 years. During his illustrious career, Mr. Shekhar Agarwal has tenanted very important appointments. He was Principal Secretary Finance to the Government of UP. He was Joint Secretary in Ministry of Finance to the Government of India. And he has served in other core areas of government like home, personnel, and as I mentioned, in finance. Shri Shekhar Agarwal ji is an alumni of St. Stephen's College, from where he did his chemistry honours, which he followed up with post-graduation in chemistry. Subsequently, he taught in Delhi University for some time and then decided to take a dip in civil services exam. He joined civil services IAS in 1977, and when he got selected, his All India ranking was 9th. Welcome to Rao's IAS, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Yogesh.
Sir, you did your graduation in Stephen's College way back in chemistry, and you were a gold medalist. And after that, you did your post-graduation, and then you taught in chemistry in Delhi University for some time before you took a dip in civil services exam. And you yourself got All India rank of 9th, sir. I stand corrected. So tell us what made you kind of join civil services? What was the incentive in those days to join civil services?
See, during my time, the best option appeared to be civil services only, because at that time, at that point of time, options in private sector were very limited. Although there were candidates who were doing management courses in Ahmedabad, IIM, or other prestigious institutes, and joining private sector, but civil services was supposed to be one of the best options. So many persons who were passing out from colleges at that time were trying. And civil services was definitely a very tough examination to pass. Fortunately, I got through, and I enjoyed my service career also.
All right, sir. Now, as you heard me, sir, that we are going to talk about personality test today, which is the third stage of civil services examination, and which presumably some people feel that it is the toughest one because they are going to now face the board. So tell us that some people call it as interview. How personality test is different from interview?
Now, as you say, it's not a test of knowledge. It's a test of your personality, because your knowledge has already been tested in the main examination. So that is the difference why it is called personality test and not an interview. Interview, well, as we understand it, would be more based on your subject knowledge, whereas here they are trying to assess your personality and judge whether you would be suitable as a civil servant.
All right, sir. And what is the composition of this board which is there?
Well, the board is presided over by a UPSC member, who is generally a retired civil servant only, or he could be an academician. Then there are 4 other members from different areas of work, like civil services or academicians. But by and large, this is the composition.
So we have 5 people who are there in the board.
Correct.
Chairperson and 4 members along with him. Okay. And these members are the subject experts in their various fields, sir?
Well, they have had long illustrious career in their own field, so they know their subject in and out.
Right, sir. And who selects these members, sir?
It's a choice taken by UPSC.
UPSC.
They invite applications for those who are willing to sit in the board, and from that they choose.
Right. Now, sir, we have been hearing that a particular board is little, kind of grilling, difficult, tough, and some of them have a reputation of being very lenient and very friendly with the candidates. Now, does this kind of lead to some kind of subjectivity, benefiting some students, some aspirants, and some aspirants who face a difficult board are little disadvantaged in this sense?
Well, I would strongly caution candidates not to judge the boards by the manner in which they behave with you, because sometimes what you call difficult board actually may be very lenient in marking, whereas sometimes boards which appear to be very friendly may be stingy in marking. So this could be very deceptive. Best is to face the board as if you are facing a friendly lot of senior members who are experts in their field, and then take it as it comes.
And I'm sure, sir, because the board has 5 members, so there could be a member who is little, kind of making a candidate more comfortable. The other one appears to be little more formal.
Yes, could be nasty, and sometimes this nasty behavior is also deliberate. So they are, judging you whether under stress you can behave normally or you lose your cool.
Alright.
So these are also traits which they are trying to assess.
Alright. So the aim of the personality test is to assess the personality attributes.
Correct.
What are those personality attributes, or would you like to throw some light on it?
See, first thing is that you must, whatever subject you are given, you must have some knowledge of that. You need not be an expert, but at least some basic knowledge you are, as a civil servant, you are expected to have. But apart from that, what is more important is your understanding, whether you are confused person or whether you have clear thinking, whether you have conviction in what you have understood, and whether you are honest, whether you have integrity, whether you have the conviction to make an argument which you believe is true, and then stick to that also. And you should be able to justify your stand also by logical arguments.
So there must be some very critical personality attributes which are kind of non-compromising in nature, like integrity is one, honesty is another one, where there's no scope of any compromisation. Getting 9 out of 10, you have to score 10 out of 10 in those attributes.
Exactly, because if they come to the understanding that the candidate is slippery or he is trying to bluff his way through, then that may not go down well with the board. So it is better if some question is asked and you don't know the answer, better to say no, or better to say you don't know, rather than bluffing your way through. Because then if you are caught, you will be in a very embarrassing position.
Yes, sir. How does board judges these attributes? Through questions which appear to be, kind of very, I would say, mundane, about current affairs, about national, international affairs, about his DAF. How do they assess the personality attributes?
See, the manner in which they go about this process is by probing you deeper and deeper. Once they come to know that you have basic understanding of the subject, then they will probe you further to assess how deep your knowledge is and how deep your understanding is. So if you are found to be logical in your thinking and not confused, then that will come out very clearly in this follow-up questions that they are asking.
Okay. Could you, use some examples, sir? For example, the point which comes to my mind is if they have to check how opinionated you are about something. So they will ask you a question which is opinion-based question, and then they will try to differ with you on that opinion.
Yes, they may try to provoke you also by giving you a different contrarian point of view. Now, that sometimes that lands the candidates in a very tricky situation, because while they must express their viewpoint very clearly, at the same time they have to avoid being argumentative. So they cannot argue with a board member even if they believe that whatever they are saying is correct, and then they are sure that they are correct. Even then they must know when to withdraw, because entering into a heated argument with board member may spoil the entire interview.
In many mock interviews, we conduct mock interviews at Rouse here, we have seen that some of the candidates are very apprehensive in kind of making an opinion or expressing an opinion about an issue which is contentious. So, I mean, they will kind of tread the middle path, neither yes nor nay kinds. So, does it reflect anything on the personality of the candidate?
Well, candidates would be all right if they express a balanced view, or if they express both sides of the issue, pros as well as cons. But if they are asked for their definite opinion on that subject, then they should not be evasive. They should express it. But at the same time, they should show an open mind, because if the member expresses a different viewpoint and is able to justify it, then they should be able to accept it also.
Yes, sir.
Instead of entering into an argument.
So there is nothing wrong in being critical about, sometimes they say, should I be critical about the government policy or anything?
Well, what I would suggest is that you are not expected to toe the government line entirely, because you are still aspiring for being a civil servant. You are not exactly a civil servant. But at the same time, it is better that you are not too critical, because that would show an extreme view which may not go down well with the board.
And as they say, there's a way to put across your point, even if it is not in consent with the other person.
Correct.
Should be put across politely and in a way with the conviction which it needs.
Yes.
All right, sir. Do these board members have any personality attribute metrics? I mean, let's say the interview marks are subdivided into marks for your confidence, these many for your out of 10 confidence as you walk in, the way you dress up, the way your oratory skills are. Is there any metrics on the paper in which a candidate gets graded?
Well, I don't think there is anything prescribed or laid down by any of the boards. Yet, I would say that certain attributes like confidence, oratory, and of course your knowledge, understanding of the subject, all these things would make an impression and will definitely be judged or assessed by the board too.
Yes, sir. And I think everybody of us, when you are in that chair where you have to assess somebody, you definitely make a mental metrics, if not on paper.
Yes.
Yes.
Every person would have his own
way of assessing. Yes, sir. That's right.
But still, Yogeshji, you would be surprised. We have seen so many times that people ask different questions and try to, elicit information in different manner from the candidate. Yet when we discuss, we arrive at the same conclusion about the candidate.
All right. So the system is quite foolproof.
Yes.
The assessment can be done by these.
Assessment can be done.
And by virtue of their seniority and age also, they are able to discern the personality attributes. So a candidate walks into the boardroom and he is sitting down. Now, what kind of information about the candidate is available with the board members?
See, the board members would be knowing what is mentioned in the DAF of the candidate. So I would say that DAF is very important from a candidate's point of view, because questions are based on DAF only. See, the board, the only knowledge they have about the candidate before he walks into the interview room is DAF. And to start a conversation, they would like to pick up a subject on which they feel that the candidate is having some knowledge, because then only they can probe him deeply and see how much understanding he has of the subject. So some topic they have to pick up which is, well, either current affairs, which is which you are expected to know anyway, or your subject, or your city where you come from, or state where you come from, or hobbies that you have mentioned in the DEF.
That is also to make candidate comfortable. He catches his breath initially,
Yes, right.
because the anxiety levels are quite high when you are entering a board, facing a board. And most of the candidates, majority of them wouldn't have faced the interview board before this.
Yes.
There are some people who have already got a job working somewhere. Maybe they have faced the interview board, but for majority it is the first time they are facing.
Correct, and therefore during our mock interviews in RAUs at least, we educate the candidates as to how they should enter the board, what sort of behavior is expected from them, what sort of dressing is expected, etc. So we tell the candidates about that also.
So the DAF plays an extremely important role. I mean, it is also a kind of ice breaking between the board and the candidate.
Correct. And any word appearing in your DAF may lead to a question. So you have to be thoroughly prepared with your DAF. Whatever you have stated in DAF, you can expect questions to be asked on that. And if you are found to be wanting in that, or if they are able to assess that you have bluffed, let us say about your extracurricular achievements or about your hobbies, then that would not go down well with the board.
Yeah, that's a very interesting point which you have highlighted, sir. I will discuss this during the course of conversation subsequently. Now, this DAF also have some details about your service preferences and your preferences for cadre and zones. Does the entire board is privy to these preferences?
See, my understanding is that this information is only with the chairperson.
In DAF, sir, one of the details which are filled up by the candidates is about their hobbies. You mentioned about hobbies and extracurricular activities and about their achievements. Now, we have noticed some of the candidates go overboard in possibly thinking that mentioning more hobbies and more achievements will impress the board. So what is your suggestion about
My suggestion is that you should be truthful. Instead of going overboard and mentioning too many achievements which are actually not there, it is better not to bluff and tell whatever is true. Because if the board member starts probing you on your hobbies or extracurricular achievements and finds that you are not exactly aware of those subjects or those issues, then it will create a very poor impression about you, and the board will get the feeling that you have been bluffing, which will ultimately not help you at all, or may even ruin your interview. So better to be truthful. Whatever achievement is there, if it is less, you mention less. If it is none, then mention nothing.
Oh, so I can mention, sir, no hobby in case I don't have a hobby.
I think it is better, I would advise not to mention anything instead of writing something which is not true.
All right. I have come across some DAFs where people have written no hobby. So I was wondering whether it is taken as a negative point by the board that this person is only into academics, he doesn't have any hobby.
Well, it may invite a question of that nature. That what do you do in your free time? You can't be studying all the time. So it may invite a question, and the candidate should be prepared to answer that. Even then, I would advise that he should be truthful.
Now, one of the apprehension which people have that those who are English speaking candidates are preferred over other candidates who are non-English speaking. Is there any truth in this myth?
Well, it's a colonial hangover, I would say. When we, in the past, when we thought that if somebody could speak English well, then he must be better educated than others. But I don't think it's true. Now, if you see the composition of people who are getting selected in civil services, they may not be very fluent in English also, because it's not their mother tongue. So I would suggest whatever language you feel comfortable in, answer the questions in that, and opt for that language for your interview. Then you will feel more comfortable. I have seen candidates who have opted for English as their language for interview, but they are not able to speak fluently at all. In that case, it would go against them, in my opinion.
All right. So I can have my medium of exam as any language and then choose a different medium for my interview.
Yes, that is allowed. But once you have chosen a medium, you will not be allowed to change that subsequently.
All right. So once it has gone into the DAF, then I have to stick to it. All right, sir. And can I choose any other native language? I mean, any other language of my...
My understanding is yes, they allow you, provided you have given the choice on the right time.
Right time. Because they have to provide for an interpreter in case. Right. So these days, because of the social media and we are all accustomed to a new language called English. It's a mix of Hindi English, and at times inadvertently we use the words in our normal conversation also. So is it acceptable to the board in case I am using some words in English?
No, in my opinion, you should avoid, words like yeah. Instead of saying yes, sir, some candidates have the habit of saying yeah. I think that sounds very rude in a formal setting like an interview, when you are talking to people who are very senior and who are trying to assess your personality. So better to use proper English rather than using slang words.
All right, sir. Right. Now, when the personality test is on the doorstep and people start preparing for personality test, almost every candidate who gets through mains goes for mock interviews. Now, what kind of role mock interviews play in making a candidate ready for the personality test?
See, in my opinion, mock interviews are very important. And in RAUs, we take care to actually prepare the candidate for facing the main interview, which may be the first time perhaps when he is appearing before UPSC. So a candidate is not even aware of how he should dress, how he should enter the room, how he should wish the board members, how he should generally conduct himself in the board. All these anxieties are there in a candidate who's facing UPSC for the first time. If he takes a mock interview, then it is in a way a full dress rehearsal. And whatever shortcomings are there in his behavior, in his way of dressing, in his mannerisms, they will all be, he will get advice from very senior people who sit in the mock interview panel. And all those shortcomings can be corrected. So that when he actually faces UPSC, he will not only be behaving rightly, but also feel confident that he is behaving rightly.
Yes, sir, that's important. Now, some of the naysayers says that when you take mock interviews, you are kind of getting tutored and your natural self is getting inhibited in some sense.
Well, that may be true about some institutes, I can't say. But in RAUs, we do take care to ensure that originality of the candidate is not lost. Let him answer the questions in the manner in which he is used to answering. He can let him use the language he likes best. But at the same time, some angularities have to be corrected. Otherwise, he will face an embarrassing situation in the board.
Yes, sir. Now, so it won't be wrong if I say that the way we prepare for our mains, take test series, different tests, different ways to prepare. So mock interview is also a kind of, a step towards getting prepared for the personality test.
Well, I would say not too many mocks should be taken. Perhaps 2 or maximum 3 would suffice, and should be taken in an institute which is prestigious, which has experience of coaching candidates in the past, rather than going to a fly-by-night operator who may give you advice which may be totally irrelevant, or in fact even may be wrong. So if you go to a prestigious institution, I think 2 or 3 mock interviews would be very helpful for a candidate.
Yeah, you have a point there, because some of the institutes would offer mock interviews free of cost, and then perhaps they have a mixed kind of board members where they are having some faculty member sitting, somebody who is just has some experience. And I have observed while I interact with some candidates who take interview with us post interview, that the kind of feedback which they, wrong feedback which they get from such boards is quite counterproductive. I mean, it shakes the confidence of a person.
Yes.
Because a board has to be extremely careful in giving the feedback, considering how much time a candidate has, whether he'll be able to, meet the aim, the feedback in the time which is available to him.
Yes, that is very correct. And not only that, if you go to a prestigious institution, then you will meet board members who know what questions to ask, because they would be familiar with the subject. On the other hand, if you go to some fly-by-night operator, then the experts sitting there may not themselves be aware of the issues involved. So that may give a very wrong picture to the candidate about his own personality. He may not even be able to assess whether he has sufficient knowledge or whether he needs further improvement.
While interacting, sir, with the candidates, I would like to share with you, I came across a very interesting thing. Some of the candidates feel that Institute A interview board is quite tough, very difficult, and they gave me a lot of points in the feedback. While I went to Institute B, where they were very, they made me comfortable, I could answer all questions, and the feedback was also very, kind of encouraging. So, does it really help to go to an institute where everything is good, where you are asked easy questions?
Well, it would be quite misleading in my opinion, because the candidate will not even come to know his shortcomings, rather than getting any advice to correct them. In RAOS, what the pattern that we follow is that we conduct the mock interview for about half an hour, and then for half an hour we discuss the entire interview with the candidate and give him our feedback. So we not only tell him where he went wrong in answering the questions, we also tell him the manner in which he has to conduct himself in the board. And we make sure that we don't dent the confidence of the candidate. We generally encourage him so that he when he is facing UPSC, he should not feel nervous. We encourage him, but at the same time, we don't give him any false sense of achievement.
So, when a candidate takes a mock interview, sir, what should be the takeaway for him from this mock interview?
From mock interview, I think he should decide what are the areas in which he needs further study. Because if he is found wanting in certain areas, then that will come out. Then there may be some issues pertaining to his DAF, I am sorry, which he may have missed. For instance, some candidates are not aware of the questions that can be asked about the city they have come from. I remember a candidate who was coming from Noida only, and I asked him what were the important projects that were coming up in Noida. He could not name even one, not even a big project like Jewar Airport. So at least these deficiencies would be, they would come out, and the candidate can prepare himself and be ready for the actual interview. So in my opinion, mock interviews are quite good.
Some candidates, when they go through the interview, at the end of it, they realize that, okay, I was not able to answer, 3 questions out of 10 or 4 questions out of 10. And then their focus is towards the content only, updating the general knowledge where they were lacking. Where I feel that they also have to address the issues of the personality attributes in case there is any.
Well, Mr. Yogesh, this question is very pertinent, I would say, because see, you have to understand that nobody knows everything. There would definitely be some questions which you are not able to answer. And it may so happen, if you are having a rough day, that those questions may prop up right in the beginning of your interview. But I would strongly advise the candidates not that their confidence should not be dented, because they should always keep in mind that some questions are bound to follow in areas in which they are confident and knowledgeable. So whatever they have not been able to answer will get covered up in the later questions if they do well. Therefore, it is important to realize that there will be some questions which you are not able to answer. Don't worry. Answer the questions which you are able to which we are well prepared with, and do well in those areas. That will be sufficient to see you through.
All right, sir. All right, sir. In the end, sir, what are the don'ts which a candidate need to keep in mind for the personality test?
The first thing that comes to my mind is that a candidate should not bluff. It's better to say that you don't know a subject rather than trying to bluff the board members. Because what will happen is that as soon as you give an answer on a subject in which you are not very confident, further questions may follow, and that would immediately reveal to the board that your knowledge is very shallow and you are just trying to bluff the board. That will land you in very embarrassing position. This is the first point I would advise the candidate. The second point is that they should not be argumentative. While it is advised that candidate should express his viewpoint on any subject very confidently and very clearly, yet he should not enter into an argument with the member, with any member, and must know when to withdraw and acknowledge, sir, that this is all I know, but maybe I have to read a little more, or maybe what you are saying is right. Because if you enter into an argument with the member, that may spoil your entire interview and may land you with very poor marks. So these are the two don'ts I would very strongly advise the candidate.
All right, sir. And the do's?
Do's would be that if you feel confident about some subject, then you can actually, make sure that you are asked questions on that. And by answering the questions in such a way that you can even anticipate the next question that would follow. If you are able to do that, you will excel.
That's a good technique, sir.
Yes. So, if you are asked a question on some subject about which you are very confident, then try to prolong the conversation on that subject as much as possible. If you are able to do that, it will, because every candidate, they spend about half an hour with them. So, if you are able to spend some 5-10 minutes on a particular topic, which is your strong area, then you will do well.
All right. That was quite enlightening, sir. Very good points which you have shared with us, and having such a vast experience of so many years of service in the civil services, being an IAS officer yourself, and then having been a member of the CAT, I'm sure you would have experienced in your life number of interviews you would have taken, and you yourself also would have been on the other side of the table.
Yes.
So I'm sure that this experience of yours has come through to us, and our listeners and people who are watching us will definitely get benefited from this. We are very grateful at Rouse, sir, for you to take out this time for us and be here during these difficult times to give your advice to the aspirants of civil services. Many thanks, sir, and have a good day.
Thank you, Yogesh. I also enjoyed your conversation with you, and
Thank you, sir.
I hope it will benefit the
Surely.
candidates.
Surely. Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you.
Good day, sir.